Came in today, I think.
You ready? Yes. Okay. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Planning and Zoning meeting for the City of Delray Beach. Thank you all for being here. Going to call the meeting to order. It's 5:01 p.m. Diane, would you like to call the roll?
Allison Thomas.
Here.
Morris Christarfin.
Here.
Chris Brown.
Here.
Gregory Snyder.
Here.
Aaron Savage.
Here.
Judy Malika.
Here.
Christina Morrison.
Here. We have a full house. Very nice. May I get a motion for approval of the agenda as written?
So moved.
Greg, is there a second?
Second.
Ally? Diane?
Allison Thomas.
Yes.
Morris Christarfin.
Yes.
Chris Brown.
Yes.
Gregory Snyder.
Yes.
Aaron Savage.
Yes.
Judy Malika.
Yes.
Christina Morrison.
Yes. We have two sets of minutes to approve. We'll start with February 26, 2024. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Morris? Thank you. Diane?
Allison Thomas.
Yes.
Morris Christarfin.
Yes.
Chris Brown.
Yes.
Gregory Snyder.
Yes.
Aaron Savage.
Yes.
Judy Malika.
Yes.
Christina Morrison.
Yes. And the minutes of March 18th, 2024. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Judy?
Second.
Second, Greg? Diane?
Allison Thomas.
Yes.
Morris Christarfin.
Yes.
Chris Brown.
Yes.
Gregory Snyder.
Yes.
Aaron Savage.
Yes.
Judy Malika.
Yes.
Christina Morrison.
Yes. Right now, we'd like to invite all of you who wish to speak tonight to be sworn in, which is customary in a quasi-judicial setting. So if you'd all stand, if you plan on speaking, okay.
Please raise your right hand. By the authority vested in me, the notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Is this when I read this or not, Diane?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a quasi-judicial hearing tonight. There are several agenda items on which the public will be invited to speak. So I'd like to read you the rules of a quasi-judicial hearing. This hearing shall be conducted in accordance with the City of Delray Beach quasi-judicial rules. The applicant and the city shall be permitted to present their case. The public shall be allowed to speak for 3 minutes each, or a maximum of 6 minutes if the person represents an organization or group of people who are present but agree not to speak. The City Commission, board members, staff, and the applicant may be allowed to cross-examine a witness. The city or the applicant will be allowed to offer rebuttal testimony. The decision to approve or deny an application or appeal may not legally be made upon personal views as to whether a project is a good project or not, nor may a decision be based on the number of citizens who support or oppose a particular project. The law requires that all decisions must be made on the basis of whether the project meets the requirement of law, the comprehensive plan, and the land development regulations. With that said, I'd like to invite the public to speak on any items that are not on the agenda. Does anybody have any comments on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to 7A. Infrastructure, city's infrastructure plan.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Dossery, Development Services, and this item is opening the process for receiving public input on infrastructure improvements as the city is going through the capital budgeting process. So we're looking for input from residents and board members on input or for projects over $25,000. If it exceeds that threshold, then it would be included in the capital improvements plan. We sent out an email to city subscribers, about a total of 1,800 addresses, the PZB subscriber list and the HOA lists, and it's been posted by the Public Information Officer on the city website. So we are asking for people to provide comments on infrastructure improvements they think the city needs to make through May 20th. At that point, we'll bring it back to Planning Board, and we'll review the comments and then take additional comments from the board. We'll also have Public Works representatives at that meeting to answer any questions you might have. The current capital improvement program is posted on the city's website, so it's available for anyone to see, and it's also attached as backup for this agenda item. There's there's a framework that the city uses to determine which projects get priority in funding, and it's based on the metric of critical improvements, mandatory improvements, or desirable improvements. So as the resource allocations are being made, this is the framework that the city will have in mind. So it could be anything such as sidewalks that need repairs, sewer or water mains related to flooding, street lighting, any repairs or resurfacing, recreational facilities, you name it. If it's a capital project, we welcome input on that at this time. Again, through May 20th, and then at that point, the planning board will review the comments that are collected, and later during the fiscal year, prior to the adoption of the city budget, the city will also have another opportunity to view the capital budget. You can send comments to pzemail@mydelraybeach.com, and we'll make sure that those are included in the report at next month's meeting. So if you have any questions, I can answer them now.
I have questions.
You want to ask a question before?
Yes.
Okay, but for the public?
I'll go after the public, actually. I can
Go ahead.
wait.
Okay.
After the public comment.
Are there any comments from the public on the public infrastructure plan? Please move forward up to the podium on your right, my left.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Leash. I'm the president of the Meridian Delray Condo Association, and I live at 335 Southeast 6th Avenue. Do I have 3 minutes if I'm representing comments, if I'm making comments on the infrastructure, suggestions about infrastructure projects? Because it's a lot to run through in 3 minutes if there's...
Are there other people here that you're representing that won't be speaking?
I do not believe so. But I thought I'll see if I can get through this list in 3 minutes,
Okay,
but it may be
thank you.
difficult.
And sir, you also have the option to email us at the end, and that way it'll be easier to include it in detail in the written report. So we welcome it both ways.
Okay, well, I'll just touch on them. So I'm a landscape architect, a city planner. I've lived here since 2012 and made a lot of observations in that time. One tremendous safety observation, I believe, or a suggestion to improve safety is the on the Atlantic Avenue Bridge. We've noted several times people right at the edge of the sidewalk, almost stepping off into traffic. There's absolutely no shoulder there. And I made the suggestion to perhaps add a crash rail on the street side, welded to the side of the sidewalk, the middle sidewalk. Would work fine with the bridge opening and closing, and I think would provide a level of safety for people who might get accidentally bumped off into traffic. Children, especially, you see people walking with children, and it's really scary to see how dangerous that is. Another thing with that bridge is underneath the bridge, I've seen about 4 inches or 5 inches of flooding at various times. The lighting panel is not functional anymore. It could be an art project to have those lit panels with art under there. There's also room for people to sleep under there on the ledges under the bridge, and I would think that may want to be filled in a little bit to make it less attractive for people to sleep under the bridge. On tree replacements, I don't think $100,000 in your budget is nearly enough for the number of trees that are missing on Federal Highway and other places around town. The Lowson project, I would like to see a phase 2 on that project. I know everybody's excited about it, but unfortunately, there was really no thought given to the visual quality. There's not one tree planted. The sidewalks are actually wider than they need to be for bike paths. There's a lot of problems with it. There's an island there that was completely paved, a longitudinal island, that the cross-section of the roadway there is about 120 feet of pure paving. It's at the curve just before the pedestrian bridges if you're heading west. I brought up the idea of mini parks at the ends of the dead-end streets that run into the intracoastal. Most of them, there are places to sit there typically, but they're not in good shape, and there's been no thought to a consistent theme for those for parks at the ends of the intracoastal. The Gladiola Garage, there's a need for the Gladiola Garage to be built sooner rather than later. It's been on the books forever, and obviously we have parking problems, but right now the Gladiola lot has 9 hours free parking, which is a detriment to the retail in the area, and we either need more parking or we need that lot to be designated as 2-hour parking, not 9-hour parking. And lastly, when the Bright Line came through, I made a comment to the board, to the City Commission, that when I was working on railroad projects, we fenced every linear foot of right-of-way. And eventually they added some fencing at the Silver Ball area, which was probably the most dangerous area. But there are other places where people cross, and I don't know whether it's something that could be funded through Bright Line, but I do believe that we need to have continuous fencing for the entire right-of-way through the town. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Jay Alpern, 3130 Lowson Boulevard, Delray Beach. And I have more of a question than a comment. The capital improvements for the golf course, there's a couple of the lines that are very difficult to understand. Golf course club renovation. What is, there's not much any detail anywhere about that. And we're talking about, redoing the golf course completely. And I don't understand how we don't have that entirely on the capital improvement plan instead of having it set aside, hoping some other way it's going to happen. It should be in our capital improvement plan. Also, I didn't see where these new water wells are going to be. It's just new water wells. I think the public needs to know where they're intending to put these things. And my suspicion is the golf course. And the one comment I do have is that it's got to be a year ago, I had informed the staff that the base at the Lowson Boulevard replacement was bad. And as you saw, once they paved it, the pavement was sliding off the road. And it bothers me. I hope we are not going to be paying that company twice for paving the road. So I didn't see that anywhere in the capital improvements. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Hello, good afternoon. Mike Tang, 3865 Sable Lakes Road. This question is in reference to CIP book page 35, Barwick Road improvements. TPA requested improvements for Barwick Road that aim to improve pedestrian and cyclist safety along Barwick Road with regard to road surfacing, drainage, and lighting. Now, the request details are improvements that are scheduled for Barwick Road spanning Atlantic to Lake Ida Road. My question is, will there be an improvement project adopted with a concrete timeline for Barwick Road north of Lake Ida Road? That's because more homes that now going to be built along Barwick Road, namely 133rd Road South, as well as Flavor Pig Coconut Lane. It's maybe 40-something homes. So you add that with 133rd, it could be about 90 in the foreseeable future. So we're also a school zone with Banyan Creek Elementary School in the area, and we don't have sidewalks on both sides of the road. North of the canal, we have, that's not Delray, we have sidewalks on both sides of the road. So as a connectivity and pedestrian flow thing between Lake Ida and Banyan Creek area, will there be a concrete timeline for improvements to Barwick Road north of? It's not currently on the CIP for 2024 to 2028. Thank you.
Hello. Greetings, Albert Richwagon, 298 Northeast 6th Avenue, Delray Beach. I'm here to beg for more bike racks. Yes, I am in the bicycle business, but unfortunately, even with all these new projects, there's still not enough places for people to lock their bikes. They're locking them to light poles, to fences. After the beach redo project was done, they put a bike rack at the south end where Delray Beach Water Sports Rentals is located, and also the volleyball nets. That bike rack has since disappeared, and now people are locking them again back to the fences. I'm not quite sure. I know there was a lot of things going on, crime, bike theft, things like that being stolen out of the rack. I'm not sure if they got rid of it for that reason or for what, but we still need a bike rack down there. And we need more racks along Atlantic Avenue as well. I am a TPA board member, and I agree with what everybody said before, Mr. Alpern and the prior gentleman, especially along Barwick Road. It is a school zone. It's been neglected for many years. Please try to put some focus on that. Thank you so much.
Is your group working with this, you belong to TBA, are you working with the city to, on a map of the city where you need the bike racks? Or
Yes.
do you want to give further input?
Human Powered Delray came up with a map a long time ago that had every bike rack.
I'm sure
That was,
it's on that.
no, I can give you all that information. I still have all those records. I was a board member. We did a study. I actually rode my scooter around for a year and documented where every bike rack was, and then we also in the report put where we thought they should be and also the sidewalk gaps. So I can get you that information. I'll email it to you directly.
Please,
I will. Thank you.
Albert, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, to the board. To the board, Morris.
Good evening. Question for staff. I want to make sure I frame it the correct way. What happens to the previous CIPs that was listed that if it wasn't completed or if it was brought to your attention? How do we make this list? Who make the decision on what's on this list? I see a lot of things. The reason I ask this question, I see a lot of things from previous CIPs that wasn't completed, but it's not on this list. In particular, I'm speaking of the Southwest neighborhood. And I know a lot of emails, some emails that's been sent out over the years. I know myself personally been talking about 8th Avenue for at least 7 years now, but I don't see anything listed anywhere that these projects are going to be addressed. The lighting in 8th Avenue, the beginning from Atlantic Avenue to 1st Street, extremely dark. Several alleyways that still have not been taken care of as far as lighting. And I know the community have been concerned and been speaking on these issues for years now. And so who makes the decision on what makes the list and what doesn't make the list?
I'm second guessing that we didn't have Public Works here tonight to provide these answers because they prepare the capital improvements budget that is brought to the City Commission. And so there may be items that fall off from year to year based on if a certain funding stream becomes available, that project might move up. But I will definitely add this to the list so that when they come next month to answer questions, they'll have some answers ready for you to be able to talk about that. And then if you have any specific emails you've sent and you wanted to forward them to me, I'll make sure that they get a written record of what people are asking so that they can give you the best answer.
Sure. Thank you. Someone is going to be sending emails. I know from the last meeting I was in with the community, someone will be sending emails out.
Okay, perfect.
About those lists of things. Thank you.
Alan, Allison?
No questions.
No?
Thanks.
Greg?
Yeah, a couple of questions or comments. In section 442, it talks about new water meters. Is that related to the overbilling problem that we have? 442.
Which document were you looking at?
I'm looking at the capital improvement plan.
Okay, let me see if I can go to
It
that.
says water meter replacements on page 53.
Okay, so this was from last year prior to the diagnosed issue about that. So it may have just been an ongoing thing to replace the water meters as needed, but we can certainly add that to the
I
question
just
of.
wondered if that's not in response to the current problem that was already on the books.
Correct, not in response to the current issue.
So that's being handled separately?
Yes, it would be, but I will make note of that for them to be able to address that at the next meeting.
Okay. Delray Beach Golf Club, I like to echo Dr. Halpern. I think that needs to be in the capital improvement plan. My understanding on Lakeview Golf Course is that they're going to do a bunch of work on greens this summer, and there's nothing in here about that. Is that something that doesn't fall under the capital improvement plan? They're going to repair 15 greens on the golf course.
I do not know the specifics of that, but we will have that added to the list for
I just
Public
wonder
Works.
why it's not there. And finally, under stormwater, close to my heart, there's a Lakeview Drive drainage project. The thing about that I want to say is we can expect a lot of construction in the area in Lakeview here in the relatively near future that's going to involve digging up a lot of things. And is this going to be coordinated with assuming the Toll Brothers goes forward? This needs to be coordinated with what they're doing, I think, to avoid digging everything up and putting it back and digging it up again.
Sure, I will bring that to the attention of Public Works.
Yeah, if you would, please. And also, this isn't really a $25,000 thing, but there's a thing they need to fix on Lakeview Drive. There's a hole. I'm sure that
A pothole?
no, there's a storm drain that collapsed. They covered it, then they uncovered it, and now there's this much. Here's the sidewalk, and here's the ground next to it. And there's a bunch of orange cones so people don't fall over, but I just want to make sure that gets,
Okay.
and it's really not under this, and that's it.
Okay. I do know on that one, there's through the city app, you can submit requests for work where there's an issue. So if you
Okay.
haven't done that yet, that may be a good place to start, but I'll certainly add it to this list.
I will talk to him.
Done?
Thanks, Rebecca.
Okay. Judy?
Thank you. I have no questions.
Greg? Chris?
I'm fine with the.
I know. You're fine with it?
Yeah.
Really?
That's not like.
I'm shocked. Aaron?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. So, just to follow up, is the golf course handled in a separate place, or was it not addressed purposely, or because it's been a matter of discussion for over a year now?
Yeah, so I know that there is a study going on, or I don't know if it's been initiated yet, to determine the historic resources associated with the course. So I do not know the status of that, but we can ask for Public Works to give an update on that too.
If you would, that would be great, because that's a major asset in this city and really is in need of some loving care. So in other cities, the approximate same age as Delray, they're having sinkhole issues, collapses, things like that. And my concern is the older neighborhoods in our city. Are we making sure the infrastructure is secure and pipes are being replaced as needed? And how is that being addressed? Is it an ongoing project from street to street, or how is that being addressed?
We'll add that question to the list.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you. And water quality, I know we're getting a new water plant, but that's 4 to 5 years down. So how is the water quality addressed between now and then? We know we have some PFAS problems and things like that, and on the island there's continuing water quality issues apparently. So is there a program to address that in the short term until the new water plant comes online?
I believe there are items in here for monitoring and testing, but we'll ask Public Works to give the interim report.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, may we move on to quasi-judicial hearings then? Number A, the Edge of Pineapple Grove project. Would you like to present first, or?
So I'll state for the record, my name is Susanna Rodriguez. I'm a planner for Delray Beach. I would like to enter file number 2022-008 into the record.
Okay,
This
thank
is-
you.
This is for agenda item 8A, and it's for a recommendation for a CBD waiver. It's for Edge at Pineapple Grove, located at 605 Northeast 2nd Street. The applicant is here today to present.
Christine, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, Christina Belenke of Miskell and Backman. My address is 14 Southeast 4th Street in Boca Raton. It's a pleasure to be here before you this evening, representing the applicant for the Edge. Just to give you a little bit of an overview as to where the property is located, it's highlighted by the pink box. It's the northeast corner of Northeast 2nd Street and Northeast 6th Avenue, a little bit 2 blocks or so north of Atlantic Avenue. Here you have a zoomed in aerial of the property. The property itself is about 0.36 acres. It is located within the Central Business District. And here we have kind of some photographs of the existing uses to put things into perspective. So the picture on the left-hand screen is probably most familiar to everybody. That's the former La Poulette restaurant. Previous to that, I believe Granger's was located there before they relocated. And then on the east-hand side of the property, you have the picture to the right. That's a residential home, and there's a guest cottage behind that that's accessed off the alley as well. And this is our proposed project. Again, just to give you a little bit of an overview, my client is proposing 8 townhouse units. They will be in 2 buildings, one fronting Northeast 6th Avenue, the other fronting the alley. Here you have our proposed site plan. Each of the townhouse units will be 3-bedroom units. They will be mainly 3 stories. There's a 4th floor that has a bonus room and an amenity deck as well. Each unit will have parking, garage parking for 2 vehicles. And here you have our current site plan where we have access off Northeast 2nd Street, and we have kind of one-way circulation, so egress is off the alley. And that is essentially what we are here to speak on today. So this evening we are requesting a review of a waiver application. It's a waiver from LDR section 4.4.13 I3B1 to permit vehicular access to the property off Northeast 2nd Street, which is classified as a primary street. And so here you have a graphic from the CBD regulations, which basically is a map of the CBD properties. The streets that are in that bold line are the streets that are classified as a primary street. So if you look at that map, we have a primary street along Northeast 6th Avenue, which is your federal highway northbound traffic, and also a primary street on Northeast 2nd Street adjacent to the property. Now, it's interesting because the properties to the east, directly across the alley, are not classified as primary streets anymore. So that classification terminates at the property. And what the regulation provides is that when you have, when you're on a primary street, if there is access to either a secondary street or an alley, the primary vehicular access needs to be through that secondary street or alley. So in this instance, we have the alley on the east-hand side of the property. So our primary vehicular access per the regulations is off the alley. We are not permitted otherwise to have access on Federal Highway, and actually we went to FDOT to see if they would even permit it, and they will not. But FDOT was agreeable to an access point on Northeast 2nd Street. It is far enough away from the intersection of their thoroughfare there. And so our teams reviewed this pretty thoroughly over the last little while, and we'll get into some of that in a little bit. But just to give you an overview as to what primary streets are intended for, they're intended to develop as superior pedestrian roadways and environments over time. So they have additional regulations related to building placement, building frontage, location of parking, service uses, that sort of thing. In this instance, we are adhering to that superior pedestrian environment through the streetscape we're providing. We do have the minimum regulations for the pedestrian streetscape, which is your 4-foot curb zone, 6-foot pedestrian walkway, and 5 feet of remaining setback, which we have primarily planted and landscaped here. We do have gumbo limbo trees along the streetscape, podocarpus, and birds of paradise to provide accents in the landscaping along the pedestrian right-of-way. We have palms, so you're really getting landscaping at different levels. In addition, we do have secondary access and doorways to the corner units to provide more of a pedestrian environment, to provide that stoop, that access into those buildings as well. And so one of the criteria relates to compatibility with the area. And so again, to put things into perspective, all of the properties to the east are not classified as primary streets. They can have as many curb cuts as they're permitted to have. There are some 5-foot wide sidewalks, but as you go and continue further east, there are no sidewalks. And then even the property to the south, that's the Renaissance Village project. Now it was developed prior to the adoption of these regulations, but it is on that primary street, and you can see in the graphic there, they don't have those kind of pedestrian-oriented items. They have a solid wall that runs along their property line, along that streetscape, and I believe only a 5-foot sidewalk adjacent to those on-street parking spaces. So they have more of a privacy wall, privacy landscaping, rather than creating that kind of open streetscape that the project seeks to provide here. And now just to go into a little bit of history before passing it along to our transportation engineer. This is the survey showing the existing access points for the property. Again, to put things into perspective a little bit. So in the center on Northeast 2nd Street, there is ingress and egress. It's the driveway to that residential home that's situated there. And then close to the intersection on Northeast 2nd Street, you have the primary access point to that commercial use, to that former restaurant. So anybody that is or has visited that restaurant in the past would access through that site, through that access point close to the intersection, and then egress onto Federal Highway. Again, through the proposed development, we would be closing off both of those curb cuts, resulting in a better situation. And then again, just going into history a little bit, because it has been a long path to get to this point. This was our initial site plan that we proposed and moved forward to public hearings with. So we did have both ingress and egress off Northeast 2nd Street. And our initial site plan, we actually had a decorative fence along 2nd Street as well. During our first public hearing, which was in front of SPRAB at the time, prior to the procedural changes, we heard some opposition from neighboring residents that had not been made aware to us beforehand. So we understood that a lot of their comments and concerns stemmed from the pedestrian environment that was being created, or the lack of pedestrian environment, I should say, that was being created. And so we had met with them and have met with them on numerous occasions now, and they have been gracious enough with their time to do that. But since that initial site plan, we listened to some of their concerns, removed the fence, and really enhanced that pedestrian environment and streetscape. Our second plan still did show the ingress and egress from Northeast 2nd Street. So this plan, that was our only access point proposed. We did go with this plan, again, back to SPRAB and then to City Commission, and still heard many concerns from the neighboring residents related to access. And so what we attempted to do now is to eliminate some of those concerns, alleviate some of the trips that are otherwise going to Northeast 2nd Street, and have proposed one-way circulation through the site. So we have only our ingress on Northeast 2nd Street with our egress going onto the alley. And that allows vehicles as they are leaving to assess the alley. You know, perhaps there's a utility vehicle that stopped doing some repair work, a delivery truck, something of that instance. They can avoid it by going in the other direction. Also, individuals that are going northbound to their destination can utilize the alley to travel north rather than going south to Northeast 2nd Street. And at this point, I'm going to pass it along to our traffic engineer to provide some additional details.
Good evening, Adam Kerr with Kimley Horn & Associates, 477 South Rosemary Avenue in West Palm Beach. We did analyze the one-way access. Believe that this layout of the one-way access is the most efficient and the safest for drivers and pedestrians. You'll notice that the traffic turning inbound to the project turns into a nice wide driveway. And then when it comes out on the alley, the driver is able to assess the situation on the alley. Again, if there's a truck in there, if there's a lot of traffic in there, they can kind of wait on site before entering the alley and adding traffic to that. The overall project actually reduces the amount of trips based off of the existing land use there. It is a small number of trips that 8 townhomes generates. About 4 trips in the morning and about 4 trips in the afternoon. That's because not everyone comes and goes during that peak hour of the day, sometime between 7 and 9 a.m. or 4 and 6 p.m. So it's a quite low volume of traffic that's using this driveway, and actually less than currently would be allowed to use it. Because that driveway is located in proximity to the intersection of Federal Highway and 2nd Street, we did a video analysis all day back in January. It was on a Wednesday, so it was in peak season, to see how the traffic queues on 2nd Street, to see if that driveway as proposed would be blocked, because that was a concern, was that traffic may not be able to enter the development if it's blocked by the cars. So we had the 12 hours of data all day long, analyzed it, and what we were able to see, you could queue 3 vehicles from the intersection back to where the proposed driveway is. So if there were more than 3 vehicles, it could potentially be blocked. What we saw was that in the evening, when traffic is most likely to enter a residential development, they're coming home, there were 60 times during those 2 hours that light was red, it cycles through and is red. and there were 3 cars or fewer 58 of those times. So only twice in 2 hours was that intersection, the driveway into the site, blocked. Now you can deal with that with signage and marking and stuff to prohibit that in the future. But today, when the driveway's not there, not in operation, it was only 2 times in those 2 hours. And again, it's a very small amount of traffic entering it. So we believe that this is the safest location because, again, traffic is turning into a wider driveway. They're able to turn out into the alley and assess the alley situation. If it was reversed, the key issue that we're trying to avoid here from a traffic standpoint, we're trying to limit the amount of two-way traffic on that alley. So it's important to have, from a traffic circulation standpoint, a driveway on 2nd Street, whether that's the inbound or the outbound. The most important thing from a traffic and safety and pedestrian standpoint is limiting that two-way traffic on the alley.
Thanks, Adam. And so just going back, again, we've met with the neighboring community on multiple occasions. They have been gracious to allocate a lot of their time on this project and to meet with us. We understand that recently there may be some concerns about the directional flow of the access that they have. From our standpoint, from our traffic analysis expert, we believe this flow is the safest. We do have an alternative prepared that shows the flow in the other direction as well. Again, from our standpoint and from the city's standpoint, we're looking to do what we believe is the safest option. So that's what we've presented here, but we do have that alternate available. In terms of the various waiver criteria, they are on your screen. The waiver shall not result in an inferior pedestrian experience. And again, I've highlighted all of the ways that this still does have that primary street requirement, those streetscape requirements, elevating it from what would otherwise be required on a secondary street. It shall not create significant incompatibilities. Again, across the street to the east, they don't have those same primary streetscape requirements, so it really does function more like a secondary street. The waiver shall not erode the connectivity of streets and sidewalk network or negatively impact the adopted bicycle plan. We're still providing those walkways that are 6 feet or larger in size. Shall not reduce the quality of civic open space. That does not apply to this project. Shall not adversely affect the neighboring area. Again, that goes to kind of compatibility. I think we are providing an enhanced streetscape design. Shall not diminish the provision of public facilities. We are still providing for all of the various public facilities required. Shall not create an unsafe situation. Again, we are certainly trying to avoid that and believe we are presenting the safest option, and does not grant a special privilege. If you look all throughout the CBD, although I acknowledge a lot of it was prior to the code changes, there are properties that access off Federal Highway even where they have an alternative. There are properties that access off other primary streets as well, including the property immediately to the south and those to the north as well. So it's not a unique situation. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions that you may have this evening. Thank you.
Staff ready to present?
Chair, while they're loading the presentation, can we do ex parte?
Ex parte. Yeah. Is there any ex parte communication? Aaron? Chris? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. You want to disclose?
I spoke with Bonnie Miskell about this project.
Thank you.
No.
I visited the site.
Well, I did as well.
That's
Steve
ex
did not.
parte.
Okay, so you visit.
Okay.
I visited the site. It was in front of me in Sprab. I've talked to Nick before, so yeah,
Okay, not new to you.
not new to me.
You know what I mean? Some of the
Okay.
things.
Okay, so I live downtown and know this site very well, and I also spoke to the applicant. Thank you. Whenever staff's ready.
So the property is zoned in the Central Business District within the Central Core Subdistrict, and the proposed use is for an 8-unit townhouse development. It fronts two primary streets, Northeast 6th Ave and Northeast 2nd Street. The development is seeking relief to LDR Section 4413 I3B1, which states that on primary streets, alleys, and secondary streets, when present, shall be the primary source of vehicular access to off-street parking. The development is fronting, again, two primary streets. The primary street, Northeast 2nd Street, ends at the alley, as primary and secondary designation is only for Central Business District. Pursuant to the code, the alley should be the primary source of vehicular access. These are your required findings, also provided in the staff report. Overall, the request should not create an inferior pedestrian experience along a primary street. It should be compatible with the area, and it should not erode the street and sidewalk connectivity. Also, the request should not negatively affect the neighboring area. It should not create an unsafe situation or result in the grant of the special privilege. The board should consider if ingress from Northeast 2nd Street would be anticipated to have a significant impact. The sidewalk is proposed to have a different paver pattern than the drive entrance, and the sidewalk pavers are proposed to continue across the access point to create a continuous pedestrian clear zone. The request is not anticipated to significantly diminish the pedestrian experience. However, due to the access point crossing the pedestrian pathway, there will still be a point of conflict. The board should also consider the proposed streetscape design if it contributes to the findings that the request is compatible with its surroundings and will not negatively affect the area or create any unsafe conditions. The request was first brought to SPRAB in April of last year. SPRAB made the motion to continue with direction to reevaluate the request. The applicant made modifications to the streetscape and returned to SPRAB in November, and the board recommended denial of 4-1. The request was then brought to City Commission on January 4th. Commission made a motion to continue with the direction to revise the primary access, and the applicant has submitted revised plans, and the proposal continues to have sole ingress from Northeast 2nd Street, but the drive aisle now exits onto the alley. Once again, this is the previous reviews for this request. The waiver will be reviewed and considered by City Commission at a later meeting. These are the board options. And this concludes my presentation. Also to note, there's emails from the public that were provided to you.
Thank you. Yes, we have them here. Thank you.
Hi, sorry, and just a point of clarification that I was just informed of, actually. My client has agreed with the neighbors to switch the access if they so desire, so we will have ingress from the alley and egress onto 2nd Street if that is their preference. We're happy to do that.
Do you have any questions for staff or rebuttal?
Well,
No-
Chair, we
no
need
other
public
questions.
comment first.
Oh, okay, good.
No other questions for staff?
No other questions?
No.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Okay, so open to the public. Are there any comments from the public on this agenda item? Please come forward. Albert?
Hello, Albert Richwagon, 298 Northeast 6th Avenue. This is in my block.
Yep.
A substantial amount of people came to the city commission meeting against all of this because they live in that neighborhood. The edge is over the edge. Max height, they went to max height down. The setback went from 13 feet to 3 feet. Talk about canyoning federal highway. Wow. The project to the south has 10-foot setbacks. It had 13, they gave them 10. And it's also half of the height of this 4-story building with rooftop patios and an optional room, I think is what he said. It's also, if you look at the rendering, you have this project and then you have the condos next to it to the north. 2nd Street is a primary entrance to the neighborhood to the east, with 7th being blocked off for the Atlantic crossings, with Northeast 3rd, where I'm at, being blocked off because the neighborhood didn't want all the traffic going through their neighborhood. So 2nd is primary, and also Northeast 5th is blocked off to the south. And I didn't see any guest parking in this project at all, or a place for anybody's dog to go poo. I'm still trying to figure out why no one's talking about the canyoning effect and the 3-foot setbacks that will be along Federal Highway and 2nd Avenue. You can say pedestrian release all you want, but this project is on the edge of the road and on the edge of the sidewalk by 3 feet. All of the projects going to the south towards Coal Fire Pizza, they all were given 10-foot setbacks from 13, not 3 from 13. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, sorry, I'm not sure that Mr. Richwagon was sworn in, actually, because I believe he arrived late.
Oh.
Diane, could you swear Mr. Richwagon, anybody else that arrived late? Please?
Anybody else that would like to be sworn in that wasn't previously? Thank you.
Please raise your right hand. By the authority vested in me, the notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
And Mr. Richwagon, can you just confirm on the record that all your statements you just gave were truthful?
All the statements I just gave were truthful to my knowledge.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sir? Were you sworn in?
I was.
Okay, great.
Hi, Michael Schlesinger, 200 Northeast 7th Avenue, Unit 3. So I am the unit right across the alley from the proposed project. I'm probably the most directly impacted by the project. I sent in an email communication. Hopefully you all had a chance to take a look at it. But I think to Ms. Morrison's point, as a matter of law, the submission for a waiver fails to meet the requirements. The findings that are required, many of them cannot be met by the governing body. The most glaring, of course, is safety. The alley, even with the slight dedication that the plan contemplates, is way too narrow to accommodate two-way traffic in its current state. Now up to 16 new vehicles, plus visitors, plus delivery trucks, will be coming now under that plan and directed for egress out through the alley. It can't accommodate two-way traffic. I thought it was kind of humorous saying that drivers coming out of that site are now going to make an assessment of whether they go left or right. They're all going to want to go right because they're not going to want to go all the way up the alley. Plus, even with the dedication, and again, it's a very slight one that the developer's proposing, as soon as you leave the site with that dedication, it immediately narrows in the alley heading up all the way to 4th Street. So you're going to create a choke point there that, again, doesn't make any sense. And also, I was really surprised about the fact that I didn't get a courtesy copy of the new plan. The developer didn't contact me. He knows we've been in contact. He knows my significant interest in this. Nobody came to me and said, we're contemplating now submitting a new plan with greater use of the alley for traffic coming out. It just doesn't seem to me to be an appropriate way to run a fair and legitimate and completely above board process. And staff knows as well of my significant interest in this. I've had communications with them on numerous occasions, and the only way I found out about this, I went into the office because I saw that there was going to be something on the agenda, and I wasn't even told that this was the proposal. I didn't find out until the agenda itself was posted. So needless to say, I'm not very happy about how this whole process has been conducted by the staff and by the developer. I'm glad to hear that some of you have actually visited the alley. I think that unless you do so, you can't really appreciate how narrow it is coming up north of 2nd Street and heading up toward 4th Street. When you cross over from Renaissance Village...
Okay, your time's up, so just wrap up. Thank you.
So anyway, my point is that the recommendation to City Commission should be a denial. It fails as a matter of law, and I think that the board needs to take that into account.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Joy.
Hi, how are you? Nice to see you all. Joy Howell, 25 Northwest 24th Court. I'm not crazy about this project, period, but I have studied it quite a bit, and I spoke in favor of the alternative last time, so I'm going to do that again today. If you find that you'd like to approve the waiver, I definitely think that the alternative traffic flow makes a lot more sense. It is a narrow alley. I can't disagree with my predecessor here, but it's much better than turning right and immediately making a left trying to get into that development. At least you'll go down further to turn into the alley, and then you'll only be coming one way with the egress and making a right turn most likely to get out of the Palm Trail neighborhood onto Federal. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Good evening.
Good evening, all. My name is Jack Indicue. I live at 419 Northeast 8th Avenue. I'm here on behalf of the Palm Trail neighborhood. As you know, this is a key entry to the neighborhood. We have been opposing this for over a year because it clearly creates very unsafe traffic conditions for those of us who drive, walk, or bike it daily. But we're not an association that's looking to cause problems. We're looking to solve problems, and we've had numerous meetings with the applicant, and we think we're moving in the right direction. While we're still not crazy about the overall layout and the scale of the project, we believe that the alternative flow, which we really haven't seen documented, would be maybe less dangerous. But we can only accept that if a certain number of conditions are met, and that's certainly that the flow from Hoffman Lane, but not the alley, into the project enters and exits on 2nd. That cannot be revoked, and it has to be permanent. We also want to make sure that there is adequate parking. What will happen when these 8 homes each get a visitor? And you have a delivery truck on top of that. It becomes problematic. Something that needs to be addressed before we can feel comfortable with the direction here. We're also concerned about the canopy. Currently, if you look at the property, many of you have visited it. It's fairly lush. All of that will be removed. We don't want in lieu donations into the city tree fund. We want to see an equivalent or larger tree canopy as required by the LDR. And I know there's some issues with planters and potters and underground utilities and all that, but that needs to be resolved, because otherwise this is going to look like a massive structure at that key intersection. And the canyoning that was mentioned before certainly will be a reality. And then, of course, we assume it's a given, but we want to point out that there should be proper signage to show the traffic flow, and that it's not only proper but also attractive signage that fits the entire project. So I think we've come a long way. Not totally there yet. As you may know, we've been working at this for over a year. We have 50 plus letters that our residents wrote to the commission. We're not against the project, but we want it done properly, to proper size, proper scale, and most importantly, safe for all of us to enjoy, because we only have one chance at creating a better neighborhood. And if we blow that, we're going to live with it the rest of our lives. So thank you for your consideration.
Jack, did I understand your testimony to be that you haven't seen the alternate plan?
Well, not today, right? Have you seen it today?
But there was testimony earlier that the plan was given to you at an earlier date.
No, not. Well, we've seen a drawing, but we have not seen it presented to you. So for you to decide, I think it's important that you look at something that could become a reality, not on some verbal comment that was made, right? Unless you have a clear visual, unless that should there be a granting of the waiver, it should be conditional upon these things being met.
But you have seen the plan previously?
I have seen a drawing.
Okay.
With the direction going from 2nd into the alley.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, the other way around. And the other way around. Yes, I have seen that.
Okay.
And in fact, we have an email Over the last 72 hours, there's been a lot of communication between the applicant and us.
Okay.
One of the emails said, I have finally spoken to my partners, and they are amenable to reversing the traffic flow per your suggestion. So I'm surprised it wasn't showed today.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you for the clarification. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there any rebuttal or questions for any?
One more speaker, I think.
Oh, there. Oh, great. Come on up. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Ronald. I live at 722 2nd Street, just a few houses down. Okay, I'm just going to show you some visuals. There are tons of dog walkers in our neighborhood that don't even live in our neighborhood because people from the townhouses like to walk through our neighborhood.
It's a beautiful neighborhood.
Thank you. People on a phone, they're watching. There are dog walkers with multiple dogs. Do you think they're looking down to see what color of tiles are there? It's just not safe. So the further we can move that down, the better we are. Because people are coming up Federal, making a right turn, and then an immediate left turn. That is why. There's one other reason why. I counted at an arbitrary time, and I am under oath, 11 trucks in our neighborhood. We didn't talk at all about trucks. There were 11 trucks in our neighborhood at a random time. I'll show you some pictures of some of those trucks and picture them backed up coming out a second, because we have landscapers, we have FedEx. I'm not showing you. These are all real trucks that were in our neighborhood all at the same time. That's my gardener. That one thing alone backed up on the light at 2nd Street going towards Federal would block that driveway. And you certainly can't see through that. Movers would happen to be there. Maintenance people. Pest control. And of course, we've got about 5 houses under various phases of construction, which I believe will continue because there's a lot of older homes that are being torn down or enlarged to, and these are big trucks as well. So that is why the neighborhood is so strongly in favor of the flow that we are suggesting, which is enter on Hoffman Lane, not on the alleyway. Would we prefer a totally different youth development there? As Jack said, yes, but we want to be pragmatic too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, I just want to make sure that Ms. Belinkie has the opportunity to see those photographs if she'd like to.
We can leave this with you folks.
Yeah, if we can keep that for the record, Mr. Reynolds, that would be great. If you can hand that to Diane, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there
They
any
were
other?
all taken with my camera.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public? Any rebuttal or questioning of any of the participants? So there is rebuttal.
Just real quick, again, as you've heard, we've spent a lot of time working with the community members to go through various alternatives. Mr. Schlesinger did not want any access off the alley, which is contrary to what the code prescribes, and we went with that alternative initially, and we're faced with some pushback from the rest of the neighbors and from the commission as well, which is why we came up with the alternate plan. We do have the alternate plan for the change in directional flow that was noted by Ms. Howell, Mr. Indicu, and Mr. Ronalds. And so it's essentially the same plan, just with the arrows that change in the other direction. We're happy to ensure as we go forward that we provide this plan for commission review, for staff review as well, so that as we move forward, this circulation is what's presented as we continue. And our team is here and happy to answer any other questions that you may have this evening.
Thank you. Any further testimony or rebuttal or review from staff?
No rebuttal from staff.
If I can, just a point of clarification.
Please.
And a reminder to the board, this is a waiver, Amy Alvarez, Development Services Department. This is a waiver regarding access from a primary street. It's not about the whole project. Once the waiver, if it goes, goes through the final steps, and if it gets approved, or even if it doesn't, regardless, the project would come back to you as a whole, and that's when you'll look at parking requirements, landscaping, all of those other details that you're familiar with. We've been working with the applicant for a few years on this project, so of course we would not bring anything to you, even as the waiver, if there were those fatal flaws in the project. So just a reminder again, this is about the access from Northeast 2nd Street.
So to that point, so the site plan has not been approved?
Correct. In the CBD, any waivers to the CBD regulations have to go through the review process, which includes either Planning and Zoning Board or SPRAB, depending on the level of the site plan, and then to City Commission for final action. Once that's complete, then they come back to their reviewing body.
Okay, so the site plan hasn't been approved, the FAR hasn't been approved, the setbacks haven't been approved, none of that's been approved.
They are still in technical review.
Thank you.
And so I hear some comments behind just another point of clarification. The intent of that is, of course, to discourage, by going through additional review steps, is, kind of to discourage you from deviating from the code, because we've got an award-winning code for our CBD, and we believe in it, and a lot of public input was put into it. So if you want to deviate, you've got to go through those extra steps.
Gotcha. But they've been dealing on this project for a while, right?
We've been working together, yes, for a bit.
Great,
And
thank
this
you.
is where we're at.
Okay, thank you. To the board, who wants to start? You can start, Morris. Greg, you want to start? That would be great.
What I have to say, I have a lot of things to say about this project, which, having just heard those comments, are all irrelevant to the question tonight. And just to summarize it, I'm not happy with this project. But as far as the waiver to go off of 2nd Street, where else are they going to go from? If there's no waiver, then, whatever you build on that corner has got to have some access off of a primary street, because it's only primary streets you can access from, in my opinion, looking at it, other than Hoffman Lane, which is in fact an alley. And I agree with the residents' concerns about alley access. So I kind of say I'm willing to approve the waiver because I don't see another way around it, and I know the site plan is going to come back later.
Thank you. Morris, you got anything? I'm sorry. Aaron, got anything?
No, nothing right now, thank you.
Okay, Chris.
I just want to make sure.
Into the microphone.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Thank you.
I've been lectured about the microphone. So, I know Adam Kerr is in the audience. Could I ask him to step up? Adam, so the proposal from your client is to have access, say you're driving on Federal, and you get access from 2nd Street, and you go up this new alley, so to speak. One way, you take a right, and you come back out either north or south on another alley. Is that correct? Is that the proposal of this applicant?
The proposal that was initially shown would be you would turn off of Federal onto 2nd Street, and then you would turn into the red highlighted. So that's a new driveway internal to the
Yes.
site, and then you would exit onto the existing Hoffman Lane or alley.
Yes,
That's
okay.
what we originally
And
proposed.
that's what you're sticking with on your.
But the applicant's willing to reverse the flow of that so that you would enter from Federal onto Second Street, go down to Hoffman Lane or the alley, turn into that, go up, and then turn into the site, and then exit through the new driveway. So that ingress to the project would be from the alley, and the egress would be directly onto Second Street.
Okay. And do you see any difference, any safety issues of either one?
No, the primary safety concern of mine is just limiting the amount of two-way traffic in the alley. So either way you circulate it, we're only adding one direction of our travel.
If you do the alternative where you go up Hoffman Lane and then down this driveway, are you going to see some people not go up Hoffman and go directly up the driveway? And now you've got two-way traffic.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly would have to be signed appropriately to make sure people don't do that.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with shared roadways. I have absolutely no concern of pedestrians sharing a road with a car, because everybody who lives there in those townhouses will be very respectful of anybody walking on that driveway. And you worked on a road for us in Pompano, Briney, and
He's worked on every
God
road
bless
in Delray.
anybody
What
who.
do you think? The guy's worked on every road in Delray.
Well, that's right. He is.
Comments.
Yeah, no, he's really a brilliant traffic engineer.
Yeah, no problem with the
No, he's really the best thing this applicant has. Okay, I think so. You're willing to change the other way, but you'll do either one or the other.
Correct.
Okay.
I actually have a question real quick. Coming in from Federal Highway to make a left.
Can I just finish?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you finished.
I did want to ask the city one question. That
Closer.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
God, I get this from my family.
I'm sorry.
Dad, would you please speak up? This is the dinner table. So, to the city, have you hired a traffic engineer to study this issue?
Not yet.
Okay.
No.
Okay, fine. I just want to know. It's not bad to have another opinion. Okay, thank you.
I don't know if you're aware or not, one of the new mayor's initiatives is to hire a traffic engineer for the city.
Well, good. I think that's a great idea. Make sure he hires Adam.
I don't know if that's available.
Well, tell him. He's listening.
Okay, Aaron, your turn. Yeah, sorry about that. I do have a question. When you're coming in from Federal Highway and then making the left into the community, is that correct?
Correct.
If somebody has to stop to make that left-hand turn, how many cars would it back up into before it actually hits Federal? Is that
So if they're headed on Second Street, like they're going.
Yes, and then they're going to make a left.
And then they're going to make the left. As we initially were proposing, if that's the ingress, the red, then it can accommodate 3 cars from Federal Highway to that driveway.
So
and
if
it would be
somebody-
something more than that to the alley, probably 7 or so cars.
Yes, so
Yeah.
going in there, then there's going to be at least 2 cars or 3 cars, you said, into there before it starts backing up into Federal Highway.
Correct. If they weren't able to cross from Second into the driveway in the
To
middle
get
of the
into their-
site.
So if they couldn't get into the community is what my point is.
Correct.
If they can't get in the community, then that's going to back up.
Correct, but that's why we did the video analysis to see how often that happens. And out of the 60 times in the evening that there was traffic backed up, there were only 2 times that driveway that situation would have occurred.
But I was backed up going the opposite way.
Correct, they're backed up, but that's what prevents you from turning into the driveway. That's why they would stop to turn.
Or
into
if somebody is stopped in that driveway.
Right.
For delivery purposes
Correct.
or any purpose whatsoever.
Right.
Then whoever needs to get in there that's the problem.
Right, then you'd
that I'm
have
saying. You're
about-
waiting for the traffic for whoever's going into that driveway, and that's going to block off that entire
If that
road.
was blocked, you could fit about 3 cars behind it on Federal.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is that it?
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
Judy, did you come up with something?
Well, not really. My experience with my site visit was the gentleman that showed the picture of the trucks. That's exactly what I saw.
Exactly.
So it was difficult to actually see the site. But it's like there's no choice, because if we don't say yes on this, then we're telling them go in and out of the alley, which they can't.
That wouldn't be their only option.
That
but
would
that
be the
would
only
be one
option, right? Yeah.
No, that would be one option.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Ally.
Yes. So I think everybody worked really hard on this, the staff, the applicant, the community, obviously the attorneys, and I think that's something that's good, because I know it was in front of me twice when I was in SPRAB, and I like how everybody's working together to get this project done. I also am very thankful that when I ride my bike a lot that you didn't put that picture up there. I'm sure I was probably seen when I was riding across. But so if you flip it, which it appears to be, this is the safest, right? Traffic pattern, whether it be in or out, it seems to be the safest.
Correct. It's again, we're just trying to limit the amount of traffic in the alley. So either direction would be the same.
Okay. I don't see a problem with it either way. Whatever I think everybody agrees upon, I'm for the waiver. I think that that lot, that corner needs an improvement from what it is now, and I think that this is a good way to do it. So I have no problem as long as it's safe, and I'm sure the pedestrians know that there'll be a egress and ingress through there, so we'll all stop or make sure that we're safe, and the cars of course will be safe too. So I have no problem with it.
Morris.
I guess I'm going to be the only one that I am probably 100% against this project, just based on hearing what the residents are saying. And this is one of these things where we sometimes completely ignore the residents that are living in there to accommodate a developer, a builder. It concerns me that the alleyway itself, just knowing how it works, and any given day, the photos that were shown about the vehicles, you could have a traffic backup with one vehicle just being in that alleyway, preventing other folks from coming down the alley, so the traffic will back up onto Federal. So the amount of concern that's coming from the residents, it seems like to me, I think back about 2 months ago, we had a project that come before the board where the residents was 100% on board with the project. They worked very well with the developers for the project. They requested waivers, and we approved the project, but there was no concerns with the residents, and the concerns they had was able to be worked out.
So,
but I think there's a
sorry to interrupt, but I do want to remind the board that the quasi-judicial rules specifically state that we don't make a decision based upon the support or opposition to any project, and we're really looking at those this 8 criteria that apply to the CBD waivers.
Yeah.
So
Well,
traffic
okay,
and
thank you.
backing up, that's.
Thank you. Well, based on the criteria itself, there's no way I can support the project just based on the criteria. Thank you.
Okay, you guys are done? Okay, so the alley's 16 feet wide, is that correct?
The alley, so it has 18 feet right now with dedication that's provided to the.
Could you be specific? Which alley are you talking about?
There's only one
Hoffman Lane.
Okay.
It's now referred to as Hoffman
It's
Lane.
confusing. Which is the definition of an alley in this picture? That's why I asked Adam to clarify that.
So I shouldn't call this an alley?
I would call it Hoffman Lane.
Hoffman Lane, okay. So Hoffman Lane at this point is 16 feet wide, is that correct?
So to the east, there was a dedication. So there's a 2-foot dedication there. And then this project would be dedicating another 2 feet. So to start, the alley will be 20 feet. But then at one point, the dedication that was to the east ends because the other property has not dedicated. And then it will narrow to 18. And then past this property, it will continue up to 16.
So specifically, coming off of Northeast 2nd Street, the alley is?
Coming from Northeast 2nd, it will be 20 feet.
20 feet. I don't see where, okay. It will be, it's not showing on this drawing as such?
So, let's see with the mouse. Okay, so right here, there's a 2-foot dedication. If everyone can see my mouse right here. And then there's a 2-foot dedication that was provided by the project. Totaling that from there to there would be 20 feet.
That's in the middle, the 20 feet's in the middle. But if you come down to where it feeds into Northeast 2nd Street, you're saying that width will be 20 feet?
It will be 20 feet when the alley will be developed fully, because the project to the east has dedication, but the alley has never been developed with the new dedication. So that's why you will still see where'd my mouse go? The line still shows it here, but the actual property line for the neighboring is over here.
So the completion in the alley will be in coordination with this development, or will it lag behind this development? What is the anticipation?
The area dedicated by Edge of Pineapple Grove will all be improved. The area that was dedicated just to the east that Susie was just describing,
right?
There was some sort of glitch. I can't explain it. We will be working with, I think, the property owner to get that finalized and improved. Not sure what happened there. Something fell through the cracks. And then as development happens in the balance of the alley, as is throughout the rest of the city, as redevelopment happens, you get the dedication, that part gets improved, so that ultimately you will have a 20-foot wide alley through the complete block.
And is it the understanding that FLADOT doesn't agree with our city code of the Northeast 2nd Street, have an opening on Northeast 2nd Street, that they say that's not a primary street and it should be able to have a entrance on and off of it? Was that the testimony of the city?
I'm not aware of any opinion by Florida Department of Transportation on Northeast 2nd Street. The classification as a primary is something that is part of our code that doesn't come from FDOT. So I may have not heard a comment regarding that, but we have not dealt with FDOT on anything regarding the classification of Northeast 2nd Street.
Okay, so let's approach it from a different matter. When the restaurant was in operation and when that house that's going to be demolished was occupied, there were driveways going into the property from Northeast 2nd Street, is that correct?
Correct. There were, right, one driveway to each property from Northeast 2nd Street.
And was there any history of that causing any problems, or was that a situation that the city had on its radar that it was problematic at all?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
You know that there were no accidents?
I don't think this is permitted. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. I'm sorry, Mr. Reynolds. I'm sorry.
Can I just ask a couple more questions? You said that when Hoffman Lane is widened to 20 feet, at some point it's going to be 18 feet, and then farther on it's going to be 16 feet. At what point does it go from 20 to 18? Does it go 20 feet all the way up to the turn that goes into the project? That's what I want to know.
All right, so if you can see my mouse right here, when you come into Northeast 2nd, there's a 2-foot dedication you could see right there, and then the property will have it. So this would be 20 feet up until where this property finishes their dedication. Then it will come into 18 feet, and then when this property is done with their dedication, it will narrow down to 16. Oop, for the rest.
Okay.
So
I'm
north
not
of the
seeing
project?
your little white thing up
It's
there
on the other
very
side.
well.
Can you see my mouse?
No.
Sorry.
The pointer?
Where are we? Which side of this am I looking at?
The left.
Okay. So, okay. So the 700 7th Avenue property, which is on the east, that's going to be 20 feet wide. Then the next building to the north of that
gonna
one
be
right
16.
there. Okay, so at that point, it's still gonna be 20 feet wide where you have that mark
At that point, it'll narrow down to 16.
16.
to 16?
Yes, because
So,
just
but here's what I'm asking you. On the picture with the L, does it
With the
20
traffic
feet,
pattern.
is it 20 feet wide all the way up to where you turn into the project?
no, because the property that's to the east ended their dedication.
And it narrows right there?
right here,
Okay.
and so it would narrow right there.
That's not very good, but. And, okay, and you know there's like utility poles
This is 16.
in the right of way. It basically looks like they're gonna be moved.
We can't ask those questions because it's not site plan, we're just approving a variance.
Well, that's, okay. Well,
Sorry.
then I do have a question about this, what we're approving. Can we direct the direction of traffic in our decision?
So this is actually a recommendation.
Okay, can we
But-
recommend a
Yes,
direction
I
of
do think
traffic?
part of your motion could be a recommendation to city commission, obviously be an approval if you're choosing a direction, but it'd be a recommendation and for the flow of traffic to come in and then whichever location is that you want the
Okay.
one-way traffic, yes.
Because I would move, if I were moving, to have it come in the Hoffman Lane and turn left.
I think that's what my
That's what-
understanding is that what the neighbors are now
Right.
preferring.
Right.
They may not have in the past, but now they are.
Well, that's not true, though. I'm not.
You don't like it.
No,
I know.
I'm a neighbor.
Okay, thank you. So, and I hate to belabor the point, let me just explain. But Palm Trail's a pretty significant neighborhood in our city, and it bears to be protected as much as we can possibly protect it as the P&Z board. So it's up to the board to, can we see our options? Is one of them to send it back to them to make them agree? No, okay. So is somebody ready to make a motion, or is there more discussion?
So I'll move to recommend approval to the city commission of the waiver request for the edge of Pineapple Grove at 605 Northeast 2nd Street, 2022-008, to allow vehicular access from Northeast 2nd Street, a primary street, by finding that the request meets the criteria set forth in the land development regulations with direction. Is that where you want me to put
No,
it?
so it'd be, well, this motion would be an action by the board. So
Okay.
it wouldn't be any type of moving with direction.
Okay.
But what has been discussed is adding into the motion the flow of traffic, whether it's from Hoffman to Second or from Second through to Hoffman.
Okay. So how do I add Hoffman to turn into Hoffman and leave?
You want traffic to enter from the east side through the alley and can come out through the south to Second Street.
What he said.
So you've gone through the through the motion,
Okay.
and then you're adding the condition that the flow of traffic enter through Hoffman Lane and exit through Second Street. Is that the amendment?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Second.
So the motion on the table is to enter through Hoffman and exit through the driveway. And to approve. So we have a motion on the table. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
I think we have a second.
We do have a second. We have a second with Greg. So we're in discussion. Is there further discussion, Morris?
I just want to making the motion tonight is given the okay to move forward with this project.
Well,
with the exception of the entryway.
No, so the waiver would then go to City Commission for final action. From there, if it's an approval by City Commission, then in all likelihood, something similar to the site plan you've seen tonight would come before this board for an actual approval of the site plan itself. If it's denied by City Commission, then the applicant would obviously need to modify what you've seen tonight because they would not be allowed to connect the property through Second Street. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, we ready? So Diane, you want to call the question?
Allison Thomas,
Yes.
Morris Kastarfin,
No.
Chris Brown,
Yes.
Gregory Snyder,
Yes.
Aaron Savage,
Yes.
Judy Mullica,
Yes.
Christina Morrison.
No.
Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Schneider.
Okay.
Oh, I agree, but that,
We're growing so fast.
oh, yeah, no, one of the things that he said,
Okay, we have time.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Mr. Weiner would be upset if you left.
Horrible project.
Who's up next?
Oh my God. Four front doors.
Mr. Weiner?
World-class city. Do you allow four front doors?
we keep doing it over and over again.
Well, we shouldn't be allowed to.
I know, but we need to discuss that.
Oh, don't get me started.
Let's do it.
So the
Two
room
timer.
has emptied out. The room has emptied out.
He represents those.
Are we ready to move on to D? Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. Alexi Howell, senior planner. I'd like to enter file number 2024-002, consideration of a level 3 site plan modification to Delray Nissan, and the applicant is here today to present.
Good evening, Rebecca Zissel, Sax Kaplan, here on behalf of the applicant. This, I guess, will be a little different than the last one. It's a level 3 site plan application. This is for the existing Nissan dealership, so a change of ownership, and we are asking for some modifications. The main two things that are changing are two areas that are already used outdoors as dealership use, but they're going to be enclosed, so they're under air. One is an outdoor display area for inventory cars, not inventory cars, but cars that people can look at, and one is an existing canopy. So I have photos of those coming up. Both of those will be converted, the first through windows and the second through glass doors. It's the total area of those two combined is 3,346 square feet. And the total lot, it's 4.14 acres. This is on South Federal Highway between two other dealerships in the automotive commercial zoning district. So this is the first of the two. We could see it under the area where the cars are near the building. And this is the second, it's a canopy. So I have 4 elevations. These are the first two, the east and the north. These are the proposed elevations. And the change, in addition to enclosing, there's going to be more windows added. There's going to be a new sign, which will come separately with the application as well. And overall, there's just some modifications that are with the new Nissan branding to coordinate with that, but not a huge difference. These are the other two elevations, south and west. So I just have a few photos showing drawings of what it would look like. This is the facing Federal Highway. You can see all the extra windows. That's other than the additional areas, that's the other big change. And then these are just other views of the property. That is the overhead doors. Overall, there's not as much to talk about here since there's no waiver. It's just that the staff report went into a lot of detail on the findings for the site plan, and it meets all of those. and for the elevations as well. And in general, it's just a revamp for the new Nissan design standards. So if you have any questions, I'm here.
To staff?
Chair, while they're loading that.
Oh, ex parte. Anyone have ex parte communication? We'll start.
I know the area.
No.
I visited it tonight.
Okay.
I believe something was in front of Sprab with the branding before.
You know, it came, and they can speak to it, staff can speak to it with more detail, but the previous owner did come with the change with the color, if you guys want to go into more of the detail.
Yes, to answer your question, it was before SPRAB in February of 2023, and it was approved, and I will touch on that on the PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you.
Okay. Morris? I'm aware of it. Okay. And I know the site very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Okay, so the item before the Board is a Level 3 site plan modification for Delray Nissan. The subject property is located on the west side of South Federal Highway and approximately 1,500 feet south of Linton Boulevard at 2200 South Federal Highway. The existing land use is general commercial with a zoning designation of automotive commercial. There is an existing Delray Nissan dealership at the property, and the proposal consists of enclosing 2 existing outdoor display areas and for vehicle display to be indoor and to modify the existing elevations. So a little bit of the history here. Between 1970 and 1985, there was a 2-story showroom office depicted in yellow that was constructed, and also a 2-story surface building and accessory building depicted in green. And in 2005, there was 2 additions done depicted in orange. One of them was a service drive-up addition, which is the area, the bigger box to the south end. So over here, I don't know if you see that, but this is the service drive-up addition where you drive up your car, you drop it off to get it serviced. And then the other addition was a 1,000 square foot sales office addition just to the east of that. And okay, so the existing conditions. Just below, I have an aerial photo of a zoomed in area of the dealership. The area that you see that's white, the roof building, that's where, if I can point here, this is where the existing showroom sales office is, that's facing Federal Highway. Again, here's the expansion of that sales office and display area, and then here just south of that is the drive-up service area. And then just towards the rear is the proposed canopy enclosure. So it's existing, there's a canopy, and that's what you see on the top left corner. So it's there, it's existing, and it's currently just for display of vehicles. And then the elevation to the right is the front of the dealership. And just below that is the existing covered area where currently there's outdoor display of vehicles. Yeah, so here, so just to make sure, so underneath there's this outdoor area that is currently being displayed for vehicles, and it's part of the building, it's in the existing envelope, and they want to enclose that with glass. And the canopy towards the rear, it's existing, and they want to also enclose that with glass. Okay. Here's just an aerial view of the site plan, and there's the proposal. Here you can see that they've enclosed it with glass, and this is rendering. And I just marked it to show that this is the area hash marked and clouded in red. And just below that is a rendering of what it would look like if the canopy were to be enclosed with overhead glass doors. And the glass doors would be on the south side and the north side. Okay, and so with that enclosure consists of elevations or modifications to the elevations. Back in, let me get the exact date, February 22nd of 2023, it went before SPRAB for a modification for a color change. And so what you see, the top elevation is what was approved at SPRAB last year, and what's below is what's proposed today. And this is the east elevation facing Federal Highway, and you can see the sign and the glass that's being added at the bottom over here, as well as the top of the second story, which is right now existing for office use, so they're providing more windows for the office. They're also adding more windows just above the main entrance to the left of that, and this is the service drive up just left of that. And the only modification really is the glass overhead doors. It's glass now, and it's like these rectangular ones, but now they're just smaller glass that is going to be thinner. You can still see through, and that's the proposal for that elevation. And so on the south elevation is the canopy that you can see towards the left, which is the existing canopy that's going to have the overhead doors. You don't see it on the previously approved south elevation just because they just didn't have it there. So you don't see really what's existing there, but you saw the pictures from earlier, and so it's there. They're providing overhead glass doors, and also extending the glass doors in the front to just bring it more down. And then this is the north elevation. The north elevation is adjacent to the property to the north, and this is the side view where the proposed enclosure for the front facing Federal, so you can see the glass here. And they're adding some more glass towards the rear, and then again, that's the canopy with the overhead garage glass doors. Okay. All right, so pursuant to section 2.410, this request is considered a level 3 site plan application. A level 3 application requires compliance with the findings in chapter 3, performance standards. And prior to the approval of development applications, current findings must be made to the items A through D. So here we have A, land use. So the use of the land must be allowed in that zoning district, and the zoning district must be consistent with the applicable land use designation. So as mentioned earlier, this is a general commercial land use with an automotive commercial zoning district. And we have the table from the comprehensive plan that shows the land use to the left and the compatible zoning districts for that land use. So I've circled in red, you can see the AC is a preferred zoning district in the general commercial land use designation, so it is consistent with the land use. And B, we have concurrency. I won't get too much into it just because it is existing and no impacts or changes have really been made. So the proposal is consistent with the level of service. And then we go into C, consistency. The overall proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And in addition to the consistency, requires a review of section 3.2.3 standards for site plan action and standards for specific area. So overall, the proposed 3,346 square foot enclosures of the existing covered outdoor display is currently within the envelope of the Nissan dealership footprint, and the development will not impact the safety or the stability of the surrounding neighborhoods, or nor create an unwarranted distinction of the visibility to traffic circulation. And then also we have subsection A, which is the wellfield protection zone. The subject property is within zone 4. It is the least restricted zones, and it's basically to regulate any contaminants to be percolated through the ground, but this proposal does not is not proposing any controlled substances as part of this addition. So it's consistent with that criteria. And for criteria G, transportation, if there's going to be an increase of more than 50 employees, a traffic concurrency would have to be provided. However, this is just an outdoor display area to be converted for indoor, and no additional employees will be part of the proposal. Okay, so we get into now the compliance with the LDRs. So again, this is zoning AC zoning district. There's specific regulations such as setbacks, height, parking, lot coverage. The site does comply with all the regulations except for lot coverage. It is legally non-conforming. It's just below the 25%. It's about 5.8%. And it is legally non-conforming. In addition to the zoning regulations, specifically in the automotive commercial zoning district, there's additional special regulations in section 4.4.10 which basically states that when there's a change of use, when there's not a change of use, but there's an expansion of building area less than 30%, the standards of the supplemental regulation shall apply only to that portion of the site and required to comply with landscape and parking requirements made by that addition. And so the overall proposal represents less than 8% of the total building area, and therefore the entire site is not required to be upgraded to comply with the full LDRs and is only limited to the parking and landscape requirements. In the parking requirements for section 469, auto dealership has to provide parking. You calculate based on the square footage and how many spaces are required. In this specific use of the outdoor display area, it's actually exempt from the parking requirements. So the proposed use is compliance with the parking. And in regards to the landscaping, the modifications to the site does not impact landscaping, and therefore it meets the landscape requirements. And here we get into the required findings for the architectural elevations, specifically 2410A3D. There's 5 subsections for consideration of compliance with that architectural elevations of 4618. They're listed 1 through 5. A, B, C, and E are relevant to the request, and I'll briefly go into that. So overall, the requirements require the modification to express honest design, construction, show proper design concept, and just create a harmonious whole. And the board has these specific criteria that they have to review for approval. And here we have the board options: move approval with as amended, or move denial, or move to continue with direction. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Now it's time for public input. There's nobody here. Oh yes, Alice. Do you have any comments, Alice?
Spence, 707 Place Tilla. What I was interested in was, with closing in all of this area, are you meeting the landscaping requirements of the right number of trees that be needed to put the property up to current standards? And so I would like you to look into that and see if we can get this all so there's no questions about it later on.
Thank you. Any other comments? I can't see anybody else. Okay, so staff,
Okay,
could you comment?
Well, like I mentioned, maybe I can go back a little bit. So section 4.410 in special regulations, there is a little, in that zoning district, there is compliance of an expansion of a building of 30%, more or less. And so if it's less than 30%, it only triggers certain aspects of the site, and those aspects are limited to the parking and landscaping. Part of the modification is not impacting the landscaping because it's part of the building envelope, and there's actually no landscaping surrounding it. I think that answers the question, but I can...
They're just enclosing existing space, so therefore it doesn't trigger additional landscaping. Is that correct?
Right. The modification is not impacting landscaping.
Okay. Okay, to the board. Who wants to start?
Chair, before board discussion, just want to make sure the applicant had the opportunity for rebuttal or cross if desired.
No, Alexia covered it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. To the board. Who wants to start? Judy.
That's absolutely beautiful. Can't wait to vote for it.
There we go. Anyone else?
Could you go to page 2 of the staff report, please? There's just a quick question that I have. First, I think the front of the building is beautiful, and I think it's a great improvement from an already pretty building. But if you could go to page 2 on yours.
Oh, my.
Yes. So the back, when they enclose it with the 2 glass doors, is that gonna attach the building to be all one long building? Next page, that page.
This page right here?
Yeah, that's great. So where is the enclosure? Is that gonna prevent like a cross through from the property if they?
So maybe this one will be better.
Oh, maybe yes.
Do you want to answer that, Rebecca?
I apologize. Our architect also was supposed to be here tonight and had a medical emergency. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think it's changing. I don't think it's connecting the buildings at all.
Okay.
My understanding is it's that same area, and it's just basically what you see as open space would have a door coming down. That's my understanding. That it's not adding to the building footprint. It's just putting glass doors from where that canopy roof is to the floor.
Yeah.
Like on both. So and this is in the back of the building.
Yeah. So the back of the building, that if you look at the picture on the bottom where the red square is that going to prohibit cross through for the property? So everybody would have to go all the way down to the end.
Well, it's right now. It's not really a cross through. It's like it's used for cars. So
okay, so there's no traffic.
It's not a traffic
anyway.
cross through. It's not like the cars don't drive through it. Okay. And yeah, now I see what you're talking about. You're talking about between the long, thin rectangle and then the showroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's in the back is the service area building. So it's not used for access right now. It would always have cars on it that are. It's already on the site plan as use for the parked cars. Okay. So it doesn't change the traffic at all.
Yeah, and the only reason why I was asking is if you were going to close that off if it impacted, like if there's an emergency, but if it's already blocked off.
Sorry, I do understand. I can answer that even though I'm without an architect. That that is not wasn't used for traffic.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
No, I appreciate the question. Thank you.
Anyone else? Morris? Aaron? Chris?
I think it looks, it's a big improvement. My mama told me to speak into the microphone. It's a big improvement.
Greg?
Yeah, I just agree with everybody. It looks really nice.
Well, thank you to the Greco family for expanding their business in Delray Beach. It's very appreciated. Just want to clarify that none of the overhead doors will be facing federal highway. Is that correct?
Oh, that's
Correct. Yeah, they're in the back of the front. The front is the windows. The doors are behind the building.
There's no overhead doors facing Federal Highway.
The service drive-through doors that could face Federal Highway.
Yes. So.
Oh, they do. I apologize.
It's okay.
But they're already glass doors.
Sorry.
In 2005.
Sorry.
Not that I want to answer the question.
No, please do. I didn't mean to misspeak there.
In 2005, when the addition was done for the service bay, it was a topic of discussion about the overhead doors, and I can go into that really quick. Give me a minute.
I thought they weren't allowed to have overhead doors facing Federal Highway.
No, it's in the
But I
front.
think that faces north-south, not east. Right? But the building faces.
The south elevation.
This right here
The
faces this way.
east elevation is facing Federal.
Yeah, so it would be the east elevation where overhead doors aren't permitted, right? That's in the code?
Yes, and I believe it's section 4410 G4A. So I don't have the code in front of me. Maybe I can, but it does in the SPRAB report. Yeah, in the SPRAB report of 2005, it did discuss the overhead doors.
Mm-hmm.
And so the discussion was that basically this requirement was specific to the repair facilities and the body shops, and that they are prohibited from facing the right-of-way for those specific uses.
Mm-hmm.
However, the service drive-up area is only for service to drive up your car and kind of give the keys to the man, and then the man goes and takes the car somewhere else. And so SPRAB approved the overhead doors based on that. This is like a clean use where it's not like these repair facilities where it's not aesthetically pleasing from the right of way. So because of the use that's established in the drive up portion, they approved the overhead doors as just for service.
I don't think it's anything different than what's a
Currently
lot
there.
of the things that's currently there. All the service area have a door that goes up and down. I know from GMC standpoint, they have a service door that goes up and down, but it faces Federal Highway. But it's just for you dropping a vehicle. It's
Drop
not where
vehicles
you
off.
actually do the repairs.
Okay.
All that stuff is facing all the way to the back,
Back,
and it's
right.
and it's facing north and south.
Okay.
Right, and
Great.
we the city required that that there would be decorative overhead doors to be installed, and so yes, it's a like for like in a sense. The glass is still remaining as glass, and it's
Okay.
decorative in nature.
Thank you. Okay, so is someone ready to make a motion?
Real quick, the other question I have is on the second floor, there's going to be a lot more light coming out. Is there just not going to be any neon or anything that would shine through the second floor windows that will be added? Nothing abnormal? Nothing that's going to be flashy or?
Michael Weiner, for the record, I thought I was going to make it through sitting it
You
out.
did good. You did good. The last 2 minutes here, yeah.
Though the opportunity to cross-examine Alice was almost brought me up. But no, first of all, there's photometric requirements.
Right.
So we know that they're regulated by photometric requirements.
Okay.
But there's no signage, and there certainly wouldn't be an attempt to make signage behind windows. I don't think that would be a good policy in Delray.
No.
And I think your code is probably good enough to cover those kinds of things, so that's not happening.
And neon signage is also prohibited within the city. Even when you see those cute little open signs on doors in the CBD, those are not allowed either.
But they're still there.
They're still there, but they're not allowed.
Code enforcement would have a busy day.
They would. They would.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, anything else? Is someone ready to make a motion?
I move to approve of the level 3 2024-002 site plan and architectural elevations to modify the existing elevations and to enclose 1,794 square feet of the existing outdoor display area with glass and 1,552 square feet existing canopy with glass, overhead doors for indoor vehicle display, 3,346 square feet total for Delray Nissan located at 2200 South Federal Highway by finding that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets criteria set forth in the land development regulations.
Is there a
I
second?
second that.
Judy? Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none. Diane, you ready?
Allison Thomas,
Yes.
Morris Christopherson.
Yes.
Chris Brown,
Yes.
Gregory Snyder,
Yes.
Aaron Savage,
Yes.
Judy Malika,
Yes.
Christina Morrison.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, is staff going to give us directions, or do you have any comments, legislative issues, blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, no legislative items. So if you like, I can move on to the staff comments. We have one administrative issue due to the scheduling of commission meetings and the requirements for budget hearings. We have to move the August meeting. So if August 12th works for the board, that looks like a date that is probably the best to keep the spacing between meetings. So we just wanted to get some consensus and put it on your radar now.
August 12th,
Versus the
as
19th.
opposed to the 19th.
Correct. The 19th is not available anymore
Okay.
due to commission schedule. Okay, so we'll send out the formal notice that it has been moved to August 12th then. And then otherwise, just to update you on items that have been before you, the temporary parking lots amendment is going to commission on the 16th for first reading. We expect to bring structures in the setback ordinance back to you all in May for with an eye on adoption by June 4th at commission. But that's all from me.
Anything else, Mr. Attorney?
No, Chair.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
No, I want to say something.
Oh, please.
That's a surprise.
Okay, please.
Okay, we're getting a lot of developments of residents that front onto alleys. And that's not what alleys are for. Has there been any movement to amend the LDRs to prohibit residences from fronting on alleys?
Yeah, so as you saw today within the CBD, there are certain preferences for having alley access, but it's no two developments are the same in a lot of ways. So I think recently we had commission direction on the types of projects that they would like to see getting access from an alley, like fire for one being one important determinant. Like if it's further than 150 feet down the alley and it can't be accessed by a truck, then it would need to be sprinkled even if it normally wouldn't per fire code. So there's things like that. So we're trying to get ahead of things before they get really far into the review process. But then you have different really constrained sites where, like this one, like as you pointed out, or someone pointed out, you have two primary streets. So then it sort of forces it to the alley. So on a case-by-case basis, we're really trying to do our best due diligence in working with applicants to get a plan brought before the board that is meeting all the safety requirements.
Because it just seems to me it's in the benefit of the city to discourage that as much as possible. And I'm not sure that beyond what you're saying, what else can be done, but it needs to be discouraged. It just discourages me to keep seeing this same thing over and over again. We have to name this alley a street.
What you're speaking about is having the front door on the alley.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Not you're against alleys.
No,
No,
alleys should be there and alleys should be alleys.
And alleys are access
But
to
they
the
should not
garage.
be where front doors should not be on alleys.
In the olden days, the alley was to your garage
That's
sometimes,
Yeah.
not to your front door.
I just think,
It sort of happened, I hate to say this, but it sort of happened, this is an architectural history lesson.
Uh-huh.
It sort of happened in some of our earlier New England cities like Boston, Philadelphia, Wilmington. They ran out of space, so they built townhouses. They were very cute townhouses, though, and they were facing alleys. You know,
that's
So-
happening here, same thing.
I know.
And,
Because they were desperate for housing back in the
Sure.
early colonial days.
sure,
And we are again.
They were.
Yeah, we are.
They're just not that cute.
No, they're not.
This thing's huge. This building's huge.
Now,
Yeah.
the thing about this project we reviewed, can I talk about it?
Are we allowed? Not.
I would recommend against it just because the applicant's not here and it does have a chance to come back to
I
you.
won't say a word. I'll just speak to my mother on the way.
okay, that's, okay.
It's a deal.
I'm really done now.
Thank you. Oh, Mr. Mark.
I'm gonna come in. Earlier, and this is more, when I was speaking in regards to the residents. I understand that every process, every project is different, and we have to base that on that individual project. The point that I was going to make is that it make it an easy decision whenever, because they're asking for a waiver. They're coming before the board asking for a waiver. And I was using that previous project as an example because the residents worked together with that developer, that builder, and it wasn't an issue. So the whole purpose of the residents is coming here and speak before the board is to voice their concern, to help either help us make a decision based on the criteria, but it does have some weight. And so the point that I was going to make is that a lot of residents is speaking against this, and for that purpose right there, because of the issue that I see in the city now, we having so many new properties, the entrance is on the alleyway, and their neighbors across the street might have a pool in the back, and it's creating a lot of problems. So I still have that ability to make the decision based on what's in front of me, but it does have some weight based on that individual project. And so the previous project I was speaking about, when Jeff Costello and them, when they came with that project, the residents in need of facelift in that area, and so all the residents was for that project. And so it was an easy decision to base on what was in front of us and what the residents were saying, that it made our decision a lot easier. In this case here, nobody really is for this project, and then it doesn't meet the criteria. So for me, if we just gonna base it strictly on that, then I can easily say no to every project. But based on the comments from the public, then it has some weight, and so we're supposed to take in consideration, from my understanding, and based on what they're saying, it helped make a decision that's best for everyone. And so I just want to make that point that, yeah, I understand that every individual project is different. I can't make a decision based on the previous, but I was using that as an example how it's easier to make that decision just based on the input from the residents and the builders.
And
But we're not
I do
allowed
want to address that just a little. What the community provides you as evidence absolutely can be relied upon to determine it's an unsafe situation, it's not harmonious, it's injurious, those types of issues. The problem is when you tie that evidence to the elements, but condition it with, we've received a lot of opposition. That type of language can actually taint your entire discussion. So even if at the end of the day you say, I'm deciding that these specific elements weren't met because of this specific evidence, if you've already communicated there's too many people in opposition, the developer could make an argument that you were not following land development regulations just merely because you expressed that opinion. So I really encourage you, if you hear statements from the public that are important, I would really highlight the evidence that they've presented to you and why it doesn't work with the elements you're dealing with for whatever item that is. And do your best to stay away from any type of comments or statements about how many people are in favor or against, especially because the quasi-judicial rules have that specific language. So your discussions about traffic and safety and the impact on the neighbors, being through public comment, that's perfect. But once we start talking about so many of the public or so much opposition or support, the other project you said everyone spoke in support, just saying those things.
I got what you said. But based on the criteria, that's my point. Based on what's in front of us. I hear you. Thank you. Thank you.
And if you ever have any questions about that or how it may work, feel free to contact our office outside of a meeting too, and I'm happy to go into more depth if you have any questions or see any issues that you'd like to discuss. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Yay. Do we, Diane?
I just think we're waiting for the gavel.
There we go.